Want a long-term side effect to eating a high-protein diet? How does an exploding intestine sound? Hey, welcome back. This is Jim with Aloe Raw. It's been a long time. Welcome to my second video. I was contemplating whether or not to do the follow-up to the gout video, and I promise I will do that. Talk about the juicing and how to remedy the pain. But I wanted to talk to you about something that happened to me recently. I was hospitalized. Lo and behold, back in December, I had severe stomach cramping and ended up close to dying. So they took me into the hospital, threw me under the CAT scan, did the whole 9 yards. Turns out that I had a condition called diverticulitis. The diverticulitis had ruptured and gone into the sterile part of my abdomen, which caused extreme pain. I spoke to the doctor. I said, how does this happen? He said, basically, your intestine, this is going to get disgusting. Your intestine is like a big sausage. When you overstuff that sausage, little pockets form. They pop out on the side here and there. And what happens is sometimes those pockets can get infected. If you don't do anything about the infection, that infection can rupture and cause an abscess. And a lot of times what they have to do is do a bowel resection and cut out the bad piece of intestine, stitch it back together, and you're good to go. So I told him, I said, look, Doc, I eat a vegan diet. How the hell did this happen? He said, well, were you always a vegan? I said, no. He said, well, it's likely, if you ate a lot of processed food in the past, that this was a condition that developed a long time ago. And for some reason, you may have caught a bug in your stomach or your digestive tract, and might have caused the infection in the sacs. So I said, well, is there anything we can do about it? He said, well, we're going to have to probably do surgery. Right now we're going to put a drainage bag. So for about 3 weeks I had a tube sticking into my gut, which was sucking out all the disgusting stuff. But I was determined that I'm not going to have the surgery. I don't want to go under a knife and have a part of my intestine removed. It's too risky, and I believe the body can heal itself. It's not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm doing what I do for myself. You make your own decisions. But I was surprised when I asked him, what causes the diverticulitis, or exploding intestine syndrome, as I like to call it. And you watch a lot of these documentaries, and you don't expect to hear this from the doctor. And he told me flat out, in countries like West Africa, where they eat a high plant-based diet, these things don't happen. Wow. So this guy was on the money. And as I say, years ago, I was a professional wrestler for a long time. I lived an Atkins diet lifestyle for many years, eating nothing but protein. And you know what? One of the things that he said was, when you eat a lot of processed food, the intestine gets stuffed like a big sausage, and it pops. And that's one thing I remember when I was eating Atkins, always constipated. I went to the bathroom maybe once a week. I was always constipated. And so when you think about it, long-term side effects, if you're eating a high-protein Atkins-type diet that's loaded with meat, eggs, that stuff doesn't pass through your digestive system very easily. It sits there, and it clogs up. And when it clogs up, you just take a cheap hose and squeeze it at both ends. It's going to bubble on each end, and that's what happens. You get the diverticulitis. That's those bubbles. Okay, so what we want to do is shift our diet, logically, to a plant-based diet. Get away from eating the meat. And, don't listen to me. Because like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a guy who went through it. And, who's on a healing journey. I'm actually down 30 pounds since the last time I did a video. It was about 230, 240. Now I'm down to about 200. But I want to read you something. And this is from the World Gastroenterology organization. And they say the development of diverticular disease, they said there's no relationship between the development of diverticula and smoking, caffeine, and alcohol consumption. However, an increased risk of developing diverticular disease is associated with a diet that is high in red meat and total fat content. This risk can be reduced by a diet high in fiber content, especially if it is a cellulose origin, fruits and vegetables. So you see, it's our diet that's sending us to the hospital with these diseases, with these chronic degenerative diseases. The statistics are even scarier when you look at overall. 5% of 40-year-olds in the United States have diverticulosis, which diverticulosis is before your gut explodes. It's diverticulosis. When the sacs become inflamed and infected, it's diverticulitis. When they explode, if it goes into the abdomen like it did with me, it's called peritonitis. So 5% of 40-year-olds have diverticular disease. Now this is where it gets scary. Over half of all people who are 60 years old have diverticulosis. And almost 100% of 80-year-olds have diverticulosis. That's scary. And I'll tell you what, I'm 37 years old, and I almost died because of this. I can imagine just one of these 80-year-olds, who may not be in the best shape. I don't know. When it happened to me, fortunately, I was training to get back in the ring. So I was, good cardio shape, and, I was doing pretty good. Getting that weight down, getting the muscle up, eating right. But imagine someone who's not, and they're told that they got to eat the standard food pyramid diet that the government always wants to shove down our throat, of meat and potatoes. Well, potatoes not so bad, but meat, dairy, all this crap. Another funny thing about this was when I was in the hospital, after my gut just exploded, they're bringing me food. And the first thing they bring me for breakfast is a plate of French toast with bacon, sausage, and eggs. And I looked at it, and I was convinced that they were trying to kill me. I didn't think I was that big of a pain in the ass in the hospital, but I was convinced they were trying to kill me at that point. So I basically told them, look, don't bring me this stuff. So I was in the hospital for about a week. All I ate was mashed potatoes and bananas. Now I know the mashed potatoes aren't raw, but mashed potatoes are mashed potatoes. Dr. Gerson used potatoes extensively in the Gerson therapy. And hey, bananas are bananas. They're a wonder food as far as I'm concerned. So if you have diverticulosis, if you have some sort of digestive disease, look at eating raw food. Look at making the transformation. You may not be able to go 100% right away, but make the switch. Make the switch. Your body is going to appreciate it in the long run. Now, it happened to me. It can happen to you. So make the effort. Make the effort, because the pain of what I went through is not worth the pleasure of eating sausage, steaks, all that other stuff. The pain's just not worth it. And believe me, it was painful. It was painful. A lot of the stuff that I read, they say the diverticulosis rupture is worse than labor pains. I don't know about that. When my wife was giving birth, it looked pretty damn painful. But I know I was on the floor sweating, throwing up, you name it. It was so bad that they had to take the 2 paramedics and 3 police officers to, try and get me to move. So take a look at raw food. Take a look at changing the way you eat. Change your lifestyle. It's not a diet. It's not something you do, just as a fad and then you get rid of it. You toss it away. It's a lifestyle. Change your lifestyle for the good of your body. If you have a family, do it for your kids. Do it for your health. Have something. And if our why is strong enough, then we can overcome any how. Okay? So if our desire to be healthy, to be fit, to just not have to go to the damn doctor or the hospital. If that's strong enough, then we can overcome the temptation of wanting to eat the shit. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Because you're probably out there, you probably tried, you probably experimented, and you said, oh, this is too hard. It is hard. It is hard. It takes balls. It takes balls to do this. You know? It's not some hippie bullshit. Okay? You want to be hardcore, get hardcore. You want to be an ass kicker, kick ass. I'll tell you what, I'm 6 foot, I'm 200 pounds, and I can go toe to toe with just about anybody. You know, I've had my fair share of fights. I was a professional fighter. You know, I used to, in wrestling, they have a term called a shooter. And I was a shooter. And a shooter was basically someone who could get in the ring and bust your leg. You know, and I was a shooter. So it's not just for the, the sissy boys and the, and the hippie chicks. Okay? If you're serious about your health, you want to get fit, and you want to get strong, take the leap. Make the change. Set goals. Okay? Do a simple process. Set your goals. Prioritize your goals and take that step. Take that step, even if it's just a little step. Get headed in the right direction. Okay? You know where you want to be. You want to get your health. And don't buy into this high protein, low carb bullshit. Don't buy into it. Because you may shed the fat off quick. But when you stop, it's going to come right back on you. It's going to come right back on you. And you know what? The long-term effects, the diverticular disease, the heart disease, it's there. It's there. You know, I've been through it. I've been through the gout because of a high-protein diet. I've been through this diverticulosis because of a high-protein diet. You know, and now hopefully there's nothing else that's going to damn near kill me. But get in the mind frame and take care of your body. Love your body. Be fit. And, you know, you don't have to spend hours in the gym to be fit. I like to do a lot of outdoor activities. I like to go hiking. Hell, even mowing the lawn. You know, but I have 5 kids. I like to go up into the mountains. We go hiking. You know, even my little ones, we can go on small hikes. We do stuff like that. Riding a bicycle. You don't have to be in the weight room pumping iron unless you're training for that. But you can be fit just by doing everyday activities. But get out, get active. Your body needs air. You need good food, good air, a lot of water, clean water, distilled water. Okay, take care of yourself. Have a good one.